research and has been involved in the number of publications. Dr. Kongolo Kalumba has practiced in various countries, including the Congo, Zambia, Lesotho, and South Africa, and is currently our ASCA scientific advisor. So at this point, I'll get Dr. Kongolo Kalumba to present for us on why sickle cell disease is considered a rare disease in Australia. Thank you, Dr. Kongolo.
Thank you very much, Agnes, for this kind introduction. I'm just going to share my slide. Can you see it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So thank you again for the invitation, and it is a pleasure for me to be here and to share this presentation with you. Sickle cell disease is a very, very, very interesting topic because many people worldwide are affected by the condition. So I've asked to present on sickle cell disease in Australia and why it is considered to be a rare disease. So the aim of this presentation will be, first, I will give an overview of sickle cell disease in Australia and why the condition is considered a rare disease. Most of all, sickle cell disease is the most common inherited disease in the world. So look at this, 5 to 7% of the world population carry a mutation for the homogenic disorder of hemoglobin. About 300,000 children are born with sickle cell disease each year worldwide. And more than 100 million people worldwide had the sickle cell trait. So that's quite impressive if you compare to many other diseases. Inherited disease is far more common. So more so in the past, you can see that sickle cell disease also used to be around the sub-Saharan in Africa and also in Asia and some European country, East European country. So, but sub-Saharan Africa is the most hit by the condition, and this will be related also to the malaria endemic. But with the change of immigration, that has changed a lot because immigration is people are moving so fast, and the mixing of the population and demographic has changed significantly, that now we see that sickle cell disease can be anywhere in the world. Just to remind you that this condition existed in Africa probably 1,000 years ago, and it was only recognized in the US in 1910. But one of the most common problems is a lack of awareness, to be aware that the condition exists. If you are not aware and don't look for it, you may even miss it. So just going back, so Australia have set up a registry for hemoglobinopathy since 2012. And that has provided us with some information which will be useful to understand the disease in Australia. So far in that registry, we have about 784 cases of hemoglobin disorder. Of those, 356 have sickle cell disease, so about 45% of the affected patient, with thalassemia leading with 53%, and other hemoglobin disorder, so going last, just 10 out of 784. Now, in the registry, so the past 12 years, the registry was analyzed to see how the sickle cell disease manifested in Australia. So there was the analysis was on a 328 patients from 11 sites across Australia. And of those, about 56% were children below 18 years and 44% were adult. So there was no differences in gender. And what interestingly is that almost 70% were born in Australia, obviously the majority being children of 83%. Then from the information we obtained from the registry, we also looked where these people are, patients coming from. So the majority of them come from sub-Saharan Africa, so almost 60% of us. Then followed by the North Africa and Middle East, while the South Central Asia, only 1.9%, and others 1%. So then also, which type, as we know, there's different genotype of sickle cell disease according to the inheritance, and the majority of those hemoglobin SS, hemoglobin SS, which comprise about almost 2/3 of the population. And this, again, the majority came from sub-Saharan Africa. While the hemoglobin S and the beta thalassemia is 18.3%. In this group, the adults were the most affected, and this probably reflect, and these people came, most people came, of these people came from North Africa and Middle East. And hemoglobin SC is only 1.8%. So how these people have been treated? So the hydroxyurea is one of the drugs we use for sickle cell disease to prevent the complications. So about 54.2% was receiving the treatment, while the iron chelation, because patients with sickle cell disease, some of them will require regular blood transfusion, and therefore the level of iron in the body will increase and may be dangerous if you don't get it out. So about 12.2% of us receive that. And one of the complications of sickle cell is also infection. That's why most children, even adults with sickle cell disease, are on a prophylactic antibiotics because of immunodeficiency, because their spleen not working properly, and also some other risk factor for infection. Now, in terms of where the majority of patients are in Australia, distribution across Australia, you can see we probably reflect again the immigration and the migration of the people from other continents, particularly from Africa. So Victoria is leading here with 144, so about 43% of cases, followed by New South Wales, just 33%, Western Australia, around 11%, South Australia 7%, and Queensland just close to 5%. So in terms of acute complications, this has not been different from what we know about sickle cell disease elsewhere. And so for acute clinical complications, this have been reported in about 84% of patients. And of those, so 76 children, of those, so 76 of children in this group reported acute clinical complications, while adults, 95.2% are reported. The difference could be perhaps because some children perhaps are parent reporting rather than the children themselves. So the most common complication, that's not different again from what we know, is a vaso-occlusive crisis. So it can be on the limbs, on the abdomen, it can be anywhere. And that's almost 73%. And second on the list was infections, which require admissions, so close to 30%. If about of those 2.2 had significant infection, we call sepsis. Acute chest syndrome was in the 16%, and splenic infection about 14%, and with the rest. One of these rare complications, particularly hyperemolysis syndrome, is quite life-threatening, where with patient, when they receive blood transfusion, and then they hemolyze a bit more and more, and that about 2.2% have been noted. In terms of a chronic complication, Again, it's been reported in about 33% of those sickle cell disease reported chronic complication. And here, chronic pain was leading with 15%, followed by chest syndrome. And the rest of the complication, again, was no difference from what we know of the disease. So now this is just looking for hospital ED presentation and hospital admissions. Again, so vaso-occlusive crisis, so pain was the main reason for the patient to present to emergency department and to be admitted with 49% ED presentation versus 50% hospital admission. Again, followed by infections and acute chest syndrome. And at the bottom, we have acute splenic sequestration, hypomolysis, and transnational attack, mainly in adult. So in terms of transfusion, so most regular transfusion was administered in almost half of the population, and of those children, about 17% underwent in the past 12 months regular transfusion, and about 6% of adults did the same. And how is the blood being given to the patient? So now automated exchange transfusion is almost up 61.2%, followed by manual top-up transfusion 21.7%, and manual exchange transfusion 17%. So is sickle cell rare in Australia? We say yes. So with the current population of 25 million and 69 Australian. So if we, based on the number we have now in the registry, so that give in essence about 40, almost close to 14 per million population have sickle cell disease in Australia. What we don't know, however, is how many have sickle cell trait, and there's been effort from ASCA to have advocating parliament and the submission application to Medicare for universal screening newborn test for sickle cell disease, which will provide us with an idea of a true incidence of sickle cell disease. It's certainly underreported, and a lack of awareness is one of the main problems, which we don't see where the cases being, in some cases were diagnosed late just because there were no awareness. Some of the doctors in Australia have never seen sickle cell disease, and obviously it can be difficult for someone to diagnose if he's not aware of the condition. The majority are children born in Australia of African ethnicity. And as I said in my presentation, the genotype, the most common, is hemoglobin SS. And hydroxyurea is still being given, and prophylactic antibiotics have been used. However, it just half of them require prophylactic antibiotics, which is a bit disappointing, because that we know that can prevent complications such as infections and the risk of death. So about a third of the patients receive regular transfusion, and mostly using automated exchange transfusion. So sickle cell disease has significant, as we've seen, cause of morbidity and requires substantial support, with most of the care happening in highly specialized tertiary hospitals across Australia, and a number of them require period, like in the past 12 months, almost close to half require ED presentation and admission, and that means there's significant costs involved in that. So in terms of a complication, we know from the literature and the experience elsewhere that the complication increase with age. The more you get older, obviously, the more the complication will happen. and the lifespan has significantly increased because of all the intervention, including the immunization, antibiotic prophylaxis, and the detection of early complications has improved significantly. What is still lacking is that in Africa, where there's the number of people, so a majority of children will die before their 5th birthday. So the true incidence is not known in Australia, and there is a really need for much work and effort to try to get that true number on a map, and to make to advocate for better care and early care through newborn screening to the policymaker. In Europe, there'll be a lot of surprise in Germany, in France, in Italy, where after doing some pilot studies to see the true incidence of sickle cell, in fact, this review that's been higher than most of the common disease which have been screened in the newborn screening test. So having said that, I will thank you for your attention, and if there's any question or clarification, feel free, please, to ask me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Kongolo Kalumba. That's a very extensive presentation. Did you want to stop sharing screen? Thank you.
Yeah.
So at this point, before we bring in questions, maybe I'll ask David, just to give your take on Rare Disease Day. And before you do that, I'll just give an introduction to David. So Edward Rose has an ultra rare condition called Occipital, I hope I'm pronouncing it okay, Horn syndrome. He has been doing talks on rare diseases live for the last 8 years at various events and conferences globally, covering many different areas such as the science behind Occipital Horn syndrome, what it's like to go through all the education milestones when managing a complicated ultra rare disease, how he has navigated employment with a rare disease, the diagnosis journey, and much more. For the last 3.5 years, David has been working with the Rare Evolution magazine, a magazine focusing on rare diseases in the UK. Through his role in also business development, he has met so many fantastic rare diseases advocates and industry professionals from all over the globe. Alongside his work at the magazine and speaking, David volunteers for a cause close to his heart, Great Ormond Street Hospital, a famous pediatric hospital in London. So at this point, I introduce David just to give his, whatever is prepared for us on Rare Disease Day and how he's coming to this space. Thank you so much, David.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for the lovely introduction. Really pleased to be here today and looking forward to all that's going on with Rare Disease Day coming up on Monday. So yeah, really excited to sort of see what people are doing and all over the world. Obviously, I'm in the UK, so I'm not in Australia. And obviously really pleased to be here today. So my condition isn't sickle cell disease. As Agnes said, it's occipital horn syndrome. It's an incredibly rare disease with kind of very little literature, which in itself makes life quite difficult. So I'm just going to give you a bit of a brief kind of history, I guess, from birth up until now, a little bit of the issues that I faced along the way. Again, although it's not sickle cell, I think one of the key things in rare disease is that you can have two different people with two different rare conditions, but I guarantee there'll be a lot of similarities in terms of finding treatment, understanding how it's going to affect your work life and all sorts of things. So although it's not sickle cell, I think there's obviously still quite a lot to be learnt. So kind of going back to the very start of my story. So as a baby, I was kind of relatively healthy, born on time, wasn't premature or anything like that, relatively normal. But it wasn't until I was just gone 2 that I just started to walk, which is obviously quite late. Didn't crawl either. So that was a strange milestone, should we say, to not be reaching. Quite kind of before that, obviously had lots of different issues, I guess, with like my bladder and hernias, which I'll come on to in a minute or two. But the walking was one of the kind of key noticeable differences. I didn't start puberty until I was probably 15 through hormone therapy. That's the only way that I could do that. I needed the testosterone that my body wasn't producing. So there's a few kind of things that didn't really kind of fit the mold. So when I was 3, I was diagnosed with something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Back at that time, it was, incredibly rare and really unusual, whereas now it's still considered a rare disease, but people are starting to understand it more. It's getting a lot better diagnosed. Certainly in the UK, it's becoming a lot more well known now, which is great. And in the US, I think it's still a rare disease by all means, but 30 years on, it seems to have come on a little bit more, and people are understanding a bit more about this condition. So that's kind of originally how things were going. So when I was 3, that's what I was told I had. But as I was kind of growing up, my body was changing all the time and didn't really maybe fit the typical kind of EDS, or as it's known, Ehlers-Danlos structure, I guess is the right word, characteristics. I didn't really kind of meet them anymore. Also, Ehlers-Danlos is a lot more common in women, so it's not unusual for a man to have it, but it's certainly female dominated in that respect. So I had to try and think of some other answers. I was kind of getting more unwell as the years were going on. And then when I was 24, I started having genetics testing to see maybe it is something a little bit different. And they found it's the gene, so it's called the ATP7A gene, which is for occipital horn syndrome. So occipital horn syndrome is still kind of similar to Ehlers-Danlos in many ways, and it used to be considered one of the sort of rarer subtypes of Ehlers-Danlos. I think there's maybe 11 types of Ehlers-Danlos, so I'm pretty sure maybe a bit more than that. And it used to be considered one of the really older subtypes of EDS, but now it's its own thing. So it's a little bit like Ehlers-Danlos, and it's also more like something called Menkes disease, which is another similar condition. So it's kind of like both, because the Menkes part of it is a copper deficiency, and the Ehlers-Danlos part is a connective tissue and collagen issue. So they're kind of put them together, and that's kind of similar to, I guess, what I have. It's incredibly rare, occipital horn syndrome. I think there's meant to be an estimated 20 people globally. I found about 6 people, I think, through online, through Instagram and all these other tools we've got these days to find people. But certainly in the UK, there isn't any. There's a guy, in Northern Ireland, and that's it. There's more, I don't know. This is the thing with ultra rare conditions, because there's not barely any awareness on the condition. There might be loads of people with my condition in the UK, but have just been misdiagnosed or haven't been diagnosed with anything just yet. So maybe there are more, and I'm obviously kind of trying to find more and connect to people, but I guess we'll kind of see what comes up of that in the future. I think because it's a genetic condition, I think it doesn't only just affect me, it affects my family. So my mum obviously feels guilty, even though it's not her fault at all. But obviously, because she was the carrier for the condition, she feels a bit of guilt, I think. And that's quite difficult, because for me personally, I can kind of handle being ill, but as a consequence of my health, it kind of directly impacts other people as well. So yeah, it can be quite difficult managing the kind of the extra additions in rare disease. Over the years, I've had about 100 plus sort of operations and procedures, so quite a lot of things going on. And occipital horn syndrome affects pretty much every part of my body, like a lot of rare diseases do. So primarily it affects sort of kidney, bladder, heart, and bowel, I guess. But it really does affect everything, and also the whole sort of musculoskeletal system. So kind of there's lots of different issues with my bones and muscles, and kind of linking to the Ehlers-Danlos part, where everything's very stretchy. So the skin is very stretchy. And the joints are also kind of all over the place. So I don't really dislocate as much as people with EDS do, but the way that I'm kind of made up is all kind of back to front, and my elbows and my shoulders all the wrong way around. And I was just born like it, so I've not really known any different. But the pain that comes with the muscles and the bone side of things are as bad as all the sort of internal issues that I have. So it really is kind of like firefighting. Really, it's not really. You can kind of maybe get one thing under control. So the bladder and kidney might be okay for a year or two, and then your joints are horrendous, and then it kind of spirals around. So you never really know what's coming. It's a bit of a boggling thing to understand what's going to happen and what each day brings. So you just have to kind of take it as it comes. I've been using a catheter since I was 7, so I think that was probably useful in many ways to have it done at such an early stage, where now I don't really think too much of it, but it's obviously been a great tool to essentially keep me alive. I don't think I'd be here without it. So I think that's I think having all these surgeries and all the catheters that I use and all the medication that I take, I think it's made me grow up very quickly. And I kind of managed my health pretty much from a child. I've always had the help of my parents and people, but I've been kind of, maybe it's just my way of dealing with my health, is that the more organized I feel with my health, probably the better I feel mentally with it. So I try, as I've got older, I've probably let it slip a little bit, and it's quite hard to kind of keep up with things. So if you're seen by lots of different departments, kind of in lots of different centres all around the UK, you have to be organised and you have to know what's going on. And obviously during COVID, it's been quite difficult with kind of not being able to have as much face-to-face things and everything being done kind of virtually. You have to be even more organised, I think, in many ways. So I think that's an important thing for many people in rare disease, especially kind of growing up and transitioning from the paediatric to the adult centres, is being able to manage your own care, because your parents won't be able to do everything for you forever, or siblings. So it's really important to if you can, to try and take ownership, or at least to try and, as you're getting a bit older in your teenagers, to try and really understand, what sort of things do I need to know, and how can I kind of look after myself when I get older. I think with my condition, because there isn't really any treatment or research, it makes it quite difficult in terms of it's only really dealing with sort of symptoms rather than actually a long-term thing. It's more, as I've said, sort of like a firefighting approach, and that's fine. I've kind of accepted that. So although it's great to have a name for my condition rather than it being something slightly different, it hasn't really changed an awful lot, because it's not like I can have a gene therapy or anything that's going to drastically change anything. But who knows what might happen in the future, and we'll just kind of have to wait and see. I have lots of physiotherapy and occupational therapy and hydrotherapy and all the different kind of pain management tools along the way to try and manage my life as much as I can. I try and exercise when I can. I think the exercise part is quite, certainly for me, I feel mentally it helps. Probably just as much, the physical part is good. It kind of strengthens my joints and my muscles and everything, but the kind of mental aspect of exercise I find is really important. And I think that it brings me on to mental health. I think mental health is such a key part of rare disease, and it affects everybody at some point. Sometimes it's a long-term thing, other times it's sort of shorter bouts. And I think when I was in my sort of early 20s, I didn't really realise how depressed my health was making me. I've always kind of been happy-go-lucky and doing things in my own way, but just kind of taking health in my stride. But I think kind of when I finished university and a little bit of time after that, I just felt so like deflated and run down, and it was physical health as well. But I think mentally, I think it was years of being unwell and never really sort of acknowledging it and never really wanting to be being different. I think it had a bit of a blip on my mental health, and I think it's really important to talk about it. There's a group, they're based in the UK and in the US, a few guys that are doing some great work in men's mental health. And I think that's really important, because men in general don't talk about health enough anyway, but especially mental health, which has had a stigma attached to it. It's getting better, but people now are sort of really taking mental health a lot more seriously, which is really good.
Thank you so much for that, David. I'll just bring in maybe other speakers, and then we can continue your discussion. Sure. Just trying to ask Jessica and Esperance, like what David has talked about. Do you relate in terms of what you're going through living with a rare disease in Australia? Just trying to do a bit of comparisons here. He's in the UK, you are here. Any comparisons here?
Yeah, absolutely. I was sitting there nodding my head and really relating to some of these things. And I think that David is so right in that we all live with different conditions, but so much of the rare experience bears commonality. I think a lot of that commonality is the fact that we live with the challenge of not only our disease, but also the challenge of people not understanding our disease. And I think that both of those things are really significant in our lives. Some of us have conditions that most people struggle to even pronounce and let alone understand, at the tiniest piece of that. And I think that in itself is actually an additional burden to be carrying. I recently actually had COVID and have been feeling really fatigued and post-viral fatigue.
Sorry, Jessica. I'll just give Dr. Kongolo Kalumba needs to leave for a medical emergency. Is anyone has any questions? Esperance and Hanna, before our hematologist leaves the call, because he needs to leave. Or Natalie, do you have any questions for Dr. Kongolo? Sorry, Jessica.
None at the moment. Thank you for a great presentation. That was really great. Really love to see all the detail. Always a pleasure to see you.
Yes, I was going to say the same. Thank you so much for that presentation. I learned so much from it. I didn't know the numbers were like that. So it was really good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kongolo, and I'm glad it's here. We'll go back and
It
was really helpful.
If there's any questions, you email them through. Thank you so much for.
And I love your video, Hanna. It was really great. Thank you. Nothing. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. You can, actually, I haven't even done the introduction properly because I just wanted you to sort of comparisons between David's things that he's gone through being in the UK, and this is why we are seeing all these, being one globally talking about rare diseases, because it's pretty much the same things, they're very similar that we go through worldwide. So before Jessica just continues sharing her, her experience, or maybe trying to compare with what she goes through compared to David and Esperance and Hanna here, I'll just tell you that Jessica Bean is a medicine access advocate. She's an international speaker, consultant, and empowerment coach for young women living with chronic illnesses. Informed at the age of 21 that she would need a double lung transplant to survive the damage caused to her lungs by the genetic condition called cystic fibrosis, Jessica fought hard to change her trajectory. Over a decade later, Jessica continues to breathe through her own lungs and live a life beyond her diagnosis. Jessica's experience is one of the first cystic fibrosis patients with a gene mutation to benefit from genetic modulation therapy, gave her an intimate understanding and emerging challenges faced by patients in the age of personalized medicine. This has inspired the mission to ensure patients and their values are represented in decision-making across the health ecosystem. So Jessica does a lot of work with other organizations, but I'm glad she's here today that she can also give us the importance of having the patient voice in decision-making. So Jessica, just again, going through what you are talking about before, what sort of challenges or in comparison to David are you going through at the moment?
Yeah, thank you so much, Agnes. And I love everything that you do and all the work that you do. So I'm always pleased to collaborate with you. What I was going to say was that, so recently I had COVID, and something that I've dealt with post-COVID is post-viral fatigue. And what I found really interesting is that when I've told people, I've had COVID and I'm feeling post-viral fatigue and not working at full capacity at the moment, there is this instant recognition and understanding. Oh, yes, I recognize what that is. I understand, there's no question about it. But in the past, I've often had challenges with fatigue with CF. And I feel that that's often been really hard to explain to people. And there hasn't been that same level of, I guess, recognition of, no, she's not just tired. Like being fatigued, as some of you may relate to it, is a really different thing. It's that heaviness that means that you just cannot get the things done in the day, or you have to make really conscious choices about the things that you do or don't do. But as somebody who has a condition where it's not really clear that link between fatigue and CF, it's often really hard to describe. So I found the experience of people's responses with COVID quite interesting. And I think that really highlights some of the challenges that we face as rare disease patients, with people just simply not having that common experience that point to be able to relate to that too. And I think that it's something that we grapple with every day.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for that. And I'll just bring that. Again, just comparing, very, very similar. And, things have to, to improve and change along the way. And, with these discussions, hopefully the policymakers and people who actually look after this will do something. So Hanna, do you have a question?
Not exactly a question. It's more of a statement. I can relate to what Jessica said, because you try to explain what you're feeling and nobody really understands because they haven't experienced it, and it's really hard sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It is hard sometimes, and as parents as well, you can relate to what you are talking about. If you are caring for somebody living with an unknown disease, it's very difficult to even actually be able to convince the doctors that need to care for them. So at this point, I'll bring in Mabor Chadhuol, who's from the Migrant and Refugee Health Organization. And just to see, sorry, Natalie, sorry, I didn't see that. Sorry, I'll let you speak after Mabor. Just in terms of, migrant health and also inclusion in our society, like so many things, we give it, for me, I give an example of myself and Natalie, where we're actually self-taught in terms of advocacy. There's no much information out there to even speak up and what we do. And, ways for those people that come in this country without knowing to speak the English language and just to navigate. And some of them haven't been educated because they've grown in the refugee camps. How is it important that, our multicultural society are able to include people with different conditions, but unable to, navigate the health system in Australia? Mabor, thank you.
Thank you very much, Agnes. I really appreciate the audience and people that have attended today. I will start from Natalie, Jessica, Anna, and the rest of people. David, I think, is at the background. I think this is one of the most important things that you've established, Agnes, and I need to acknowledge this, that in Australia, of course, is a rare disease. A sickle cell disease is a rare disease. And of course, there are many organizations that are concentrating to make sure that we address issues to do with sickle cell disease. Given the presentation of Okloma, Dr. Okloma, I don't know whether I pronounce him well. I think
Kalumba.
Kalumba, yeah. I think generally, sickle cell disease is global health, and it has a lot of implication to our population, especially the migrant, refugee, and asylum seekers that are living here. You've seen from the statistics that there are a lot to do with complications that are known. And I think Anna spoke about, feeling some pain, and it's very hard actually to get those being explained to a doctor, and for a doctor even to understand what is going on in your body. That become an issue that rarely in the medical paternity, that you talk about something and likely you cannot get good diagnosis or accurate diagnosis as to why you are suffering such a symptom. So what I would say is that individually, I think it has a high risk of mortality and morbidity from infection. I think Jessica talked about infection of COVID-19 and how it is that you live with long COVID effects, like tiredness and a lot of things that to do with your body. So looking at such things, actually pain, it causes a lot of pain crisis, and of course acute chest syndrome, as what Dr. Kalumba said, and also another complication. To come to the question on how inclusive we could be, I think, yes, we need to be part of this campaign. It's a public health threat, and that need collective and collaboration efforts to make sure that we address issues that are known to other population. And by doing that, actually, we need to mobilize the community to ensure that they understand public health needs related to sickle cell disease, to make sure that we improve outcome and maintaining health for those who are affected by the disease. And by doing that, actually, we need to establish some newborn screening and maintain surveillance in making sure that those who are affected, of course, need to be treated, and those who are not affected need to be screened off and make sure that they are given right interventions before it could isolate to some risk factors or medical condition that could complicate the whole situation. And that actually comes in with enhancing health maintenance and to ensure that we develop some guideline. And I would encourage you, Agnes, although it's very hard to get funding now, but I would encourage you to make sure that you start developing some guideline based on the numbers that you have, to ensure that we proceed in the way that we have some plans and intervention that we could put through. And if we have some guideline, I think other people would be able to to ensure that they understand better what is going on. And that comes in with with some activities that could even strengthen public health in addressing sickle cell disease, and for even migrants be educated, having that awareness within the community and be able to understand, through capacity building and developing some skill where they could actually endure all those impact of sickle cell disease. So that's my take. Otherwise, it's a thread, I know, and I think my colleagues and some people that have spoken are they have a really good view, like Jessica Veen from UK, welcome to Australia, and or maybe, let's just meet on the space. That's a good take anyway. Thank you very much, Agnes, for inviting me here. Otherwise, bye.
Thank you so much for that, Mabel. I'm doing things, back to front. So I should have done this. I do owe you to give you an introduction. It's not too late. So before we just ask Mabel his questions, he's a clinical epidemiologist and public health expert in global health. He holds a Master of Public Health and Master of Science in Medicine, Clinical Epidemiology from the University of Melbourne and the University of Sydney, respectively. Among other qualifications, he has an honors code certificate of fundamental of clinical trial from Harvard University, EDX Boston, USA, and certificate 4 in training and assessment from the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, RMIT University. He has 10 years experience as an executive director of the Sudanese Mother Coalition in Victoria and held more executive positions in health organizations. He is one of our partners. We are partnering with him with the organization this year, so that we can enhance sickle cell understanding in the migrant community. So at this point, I'll just get all the speakers on the panel, then we'll go to the questions, seeing that we are running a little bit out of time. I'll give Hanna the floor. So Hanna, for those people that don't know Hanna, or those people that have seen Hanna in the past few days, we've brought Hanna on the group, on the ASCA team, to be the first ever child ambassador. So Hanna Visaji is an 11-year-old girl. She's a sister, daughter, grandchild, niece, student, school captain, and friend. Someone born with living with a sickle beta thalassemia. She is also one of the 300 million people worldwide currently living with a rare disease. She's also the very first child ambassador for ASCA, as I said. Her hobbies include playing the piano, the recorder, drawing, reading, playing with a dog, and playing board games. Her passion includes social justice, equality, raising awareness about sickle cell disease, helping others, and making a positive difference in the lives of others. Her hopes for the future include becoming an amazing teacher and an author. So we'll definitely make that happen, Hanna. So you and I will work on that. So at this point, Hanna, what did you prepare for us? You being born with a rare condition in Australia, what are the things that you found challenging, especially at school, even in the community and the hospitals? What do you tell your friends if they ask you why you miss school sometimes? So what have you prepared for us? Go ahead, Hanna. Thank you.
Well, at first, I just started I told my close friends about it, nobody else. I was secretive about it. I used code words, everything. I just wasn't comfortable talking about it. And it was only when I was 11 that I actually told my class about it. And I was so nervous. I prepared this whole presentation And I was just hoping that people wouldn't think I was like weird afterwards and all that. And also like challenges with living with sickle cell and going to school, especially during COVID, it's like been really difficult because often during the day I'll have pain and then I'll have to go to the office and have Panadol and miss out on the activity. And sometimes it can be so bad I have to go home or to hospital. And I hate missing out on school. It's just, I miss out on so much like schoolwork, playing with friends, and it just, I hate it so much. Also with COVID, like I've been the first person, I think, in my whole school to wear a mask since the beginning of COVID, pretty much. And you know, people always asking me, why are you wearing a mask and everything? And like, I didn't really know what to say. So I just kind of didn't say anything. But like, I've explained why I want to wear a mask, because, you know, I am more at risk with my condition, and it is scary. Like COVID scares me. And so, you know, I also, like, I ask people to put their masks on properly and stuff. I don't always get a positive reaction because, you know, people, I get that people are sick of wearing masks. Like, I'm sick of wearing masks too, but like, I'm doing it to protect myself and my family. And like, I'm not just doing it for myself, because I want everyone to be protected from COVID. It can be serious. And yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Hannah. But you know, one of the positive things that came out of this, because you just told your mom that you are ready to talk about your condition. So what changed? Have you gone through some form of acceptance as young as you are to just say, you know, I have to face it and start talking about it? What has really changed from the previous years when you told your mom to come on? And for those people that haven't seen Hannah's presentation, I'll share it. She did a presentation for us, the same presentation she did at school. So what has changed, and how comfortable do you feel talking about the fact that you're living with sickle cell?
I think like I saw a video of a girl who's like around my age who has sickle cell on ASCA, and I just like, she seems so confident, and I wanted to kind of be like that. And I've been thinking about telling my class for a while, because it's silly keeping secrets, and like people wonder why I miss so much school and why I go off in the middle of class to have Panadol and stuff. And you know, so I don't know, I just kind of grew more confident. Like I've spoken for SRC and stuff, and so I had experience already. It's been really hard like talking about my condition though, because it's you know, it's personal. It's very personal and emotional, because there's all that pain and all those past experiences that like stay with you forever. And it's been hard talking about it, but it really helps to find people, like other people with it, because then like I don't feel so alone anymore. So.
Well, thank you so much for that, Hannah. You really just educating us, especially for me who don't really live with a condition, but who has a child who, you know, at some point also she will be maybe comfortable, especially to talk about her bone marrow transplant experience. So thank you so much for sharing. And, you know, you're always open to come and share any projects that you're working on. And you and I are going to do that book where you're going to become an author very soon. So Esperance, do you relate, like seeing what Hannah is talking about? At what point do you feel comfortable to actually share your experience? Because you and I have gone through this and we've known each other, and then there's just some hard days where you just don't want to talk, and you know, what sort of emotions do you go through living with a rare disease, especially in a country like Australia? Thank you, Esperance.
That's okay. So I definitely agree with what Hannah said. I discovered, well, my disease at 9 years old. That's when I moved to Australia and I discovered it. And it was quite hard, I have to say. It was quite hard for me because, like Hannah said, she misses out on school, she misses out on hanging out with friends, she misses out on so much. And for me, I spent so much time in hospital that I missed out on like major milestones in my life. So I missed out on learning things like riding a bike and things like that. I missed out on making long-term friendships. I missed out on, you know, little things that kids love doing. I missed out on that. So I can definitely relate to that. And as per me being, whether I'm comfortable talking about my sickle cell or not, I've always been comfortable. I find that I get very excited when somebody asks me, so what is sickle cell? Because that's an opportunity for me to tell them what it is that I deal with. So I've always been very comfortable. I just didn't know the steps to take to start advocating for other people, because as far as I'm aware, only when I met Agnes, that's when I started knowing other people with sickle cell. Before that, I was the only one. I never ever met anyone else with sickle cell until I met Agnes. So thank you for that. But yeah, I've always been very comfortable talking about sickle cell because that's just an opportunity for me to teach someone something. But one thing that I am not fully comfortable talking about at the moment, which is what Agnes is referring to, is my mental health with sickle cell. So that's something I'm working towards at the moment. And yeah, that's one thing I've had difficulty talking about. But as per sickle cell, I've always been comfortable talking about it. Yeah. And yeah, it's an experience. So Hannah, I'm with you. I understand what you're going through, but it gets easier. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that, Esperance. And again, doing things backwards, I'll tell you that Esperance Puberty is one of ASCA's patient representatives. She's the only adult patient representative. And again, she's joining us this year. She moved to Australia at the age of 9 and discovered her diagnosis of sickle cell anemia. Despite the difficulties she's had to face in life, she managed to accomplish her dream of working in the medical industry. She has now joined us and its cause, and she's been very passionate about raising awareness as she knows life with sickle cell. So we are excited to have you on our team, Esperance, and just try to change the narratives, especially talking. I know with mental health, some of the things that help, I may not be living in sickle cell, but as parents, we also go through that denial phase and processing of, why we sort of have this guilt. For me, when I started talking about my daughter having sickle cell, it helped. Believe me, I also went to therapy and I was prescribed antidepressants, but after some time, when I started talking about it, I felt a little bit better to share my story and doing things here today. So we are a big family, and just know that you and Hannah and everyone in Australia watching this, living with sickle cell as a parent, you are always welcome to contact us. So Natalie, you are a caregiver to a lovely young girl. What do you think about all these discussions today as we are just about wrapping up? Thank you, Natalie.
I'm really pleased to be here. I think it was a really great discussion. I must say, one key takeaway that I took from tonight is when Jessica mentioned how people, there's recognition when we talk, for example, about the long-term effects of COVID. And that obviously just goes to the level of awareness that all of us had around COVID. So you must have been born under a rock or from another planet if you've never heard of COVID. So I think that's what all rare diseases need. And that's where organizations like ASCA or people like Jessica, people like David Rose are so important, and even young people like Hannah and Esperance are so important in raising that awareness, so that it becomes front of mind for people. There is that recognition, because we've all faced those moments where I would say, especially as a parent, in the beginning stages of my daughter's diagnosis, having to deal with sickle cell disease, you're already distraught. Your child is not doing well. and you are in a hospital where you still have to explain, even though, when you go to the hospital, you are expecting that you will be taken care of, that whoever you will deal with, will be familiar. And obviously it all goes to that lack of awareness. So I definitely am glad to be here. And I pray that everyone on this panel and everyone watching keeps doing their bit for awareness or advocacy wherever you can, just join in and spread the word. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Natalie. I think last thoughts now as we go just slightly over 6 minutes. David, where do we go from here? Like how else can we do this to try to encourage people to talk more about rare diseases, and in terms of policy, what things should they be looking at to make it easy for people living with rare diseases like yourself?
Yeah, maybe from a slightly different perspective, but I mean, it's come up in a few of the speakers already. Two things that I'm really passionate about are rare disease in education, like in schools and universities, and also in workplaces, because that's probably the two biggest things that I've experienced was like when I was growing up and at university and at high school. I missed loads of, like people have already said before me, I've missed loads of exams, I've missed loads of time off school, doing lots of work from home. I think that awareness, especially with kind of hidden conditions as well, that's a really big thing. I think that, the sort of education establishments where I went, they kind of understood it. If there was a visual aid, like if someone was using a wheelchair or a stick, something that was visually different, they were better. But for people with conditions that are rare and hidden and chronic, all these kind of conditions, just to be more awareness and more, do what you can at your school or your university or your workplace, like be really open about it, because the more people talk about it, like, not the stigma is the wrong word, but the more people are aware of different conditions, because obviously when you put all the rare disease together, it's not rare at all. That's the whole point. So collectively they're not rare, and I think it's just more just being open about it as much as you can. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that, David. And I think that's what we are trying to do. And these days with social media, it makes it easy so that we can connect like this and you can spread the word from everywhere around the globe. So thank you so much for joining us. Last thoughts, Hanna. You've got your hand raised, so I might as well go to you. So what did you want to contribute?
Another thing is, like, people think it's contagious. Like, if you don't tell them that it's not contagious, they'll think it's contagious. Or I once had swimming with this school, and they keep switching up the swimming teachers, so they don't know about my condition. And I have to be really close to the towel, wrap up in the towel quickly so that I don't get any pain, because a change of temperature can also trigger it. And so first, one thing is, I heard somebody say that I had hypothermia. So that was very annoying. And another thing is, they made me get up and walk out of the pool instead of paddle to the other side so that I could climb out and get wrap myself around in my towel. And also, I wanted to say thank you for inviting me over to speak about sickle cell, and I hope that I can be a more confident speaker as I grow up, and I can.
Oh, you are, Hanna. You definitely have. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Natalie and Jessica and all of you. It's just it's a big thing to talk about sickle cell, but I love it. It's a big help to hear other people's experiences and to share my experience instead of keeping it bottled up inside of me.
Well, thank you so much for that, Hanna. And again, just thank you. So thank Karen and your dad and every member of the family for allowing us to share your life with us and with the world. So again, thank you so much. Jessica, your last thoughts, what should we be doing more, in terms of patient involvement, patient understanding of policy, and just how can we spread the awareness about rare diseases? Thanks, Jessica.
Yeah, firstly, I'm going to say, Hanna, you are impressive. You are you are a really impressive human, and I know that there are big things going to come your way. So good on you. I think telling your story is such a courageous thing. And there are absolutely people out there cheering for you and supporting you, and you're not alone in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're really amazing. It's been such a pleasure to hear you speak tonight.
Yeah, you're amazing too. You've been an inspiration.
Oh, we should chat offline.
Yeah.
Agnes, I think the thing that I'm really passionate about is making sure that there's education around rare disease, not just at a community level, but at a government and policy level. I think that we have to make sure that the challenges of rare disease patients are seen, heard, and valued by those who make decisions about access to new therapies, access to services, access to all treatments, and for them to truly value the different ways that our disease impacts our life. That's what we do at Patient Voice Initiative. And I think it's fabulous to see in some rare disease areas, including sickle cell disease, that there are really exciting times ahead for treatments coming through the development pipeline. But we have to make sure that our policy is ready to provide patients with access to those therapies. It's and at a global level, we have to ensure that there's equity of access to some of these incredible treatments, because there's no point in amazing life-changing treatments existing if patients can't get access to them.
Yeah, definitely.
We have to do better there. And especially in a country like Australia, we have to lead that process and make sure that patients aren't kept waiting for those.
Yeah. Well, that's the situation at the moment in Australia. We do have a drug that's been approved, TGA approved, but it's not on PBS yet. And I know that is not on the agenda for this sitting for the PBS meeting in March. So that's something that we should talk offline. Jessica, like, what should we be doing? Because obviously not everyone, takes hydroxyurea for various reasons. And, these other therapies that are around the world, they're not in Australia yet. So yes, the government and policymakers should be doing more in terms of access for the patients. So thank you so much for that, Jessica. And again, we'll talk offline. Just wrapping up again, before we have Mabor closing for us. Esperance, what should we do? What plans do we have going forward? How are we going to just increase the awareness in our community?
Well, my plan of increasing the awareness in the community is I want to use social media a lot to put it out there, because I feel like, especially, how do I say, the younger generations out there, the older ones know about it, but the younger ones, they're the ones who don't know anything about rare diseases. So I think we should really utilize social media. So my plan going forward is to very much utilize that, use my social platforms to spread awareness so that more people know about it. And I definitely agree with what Jessica said. The main goal should be to get it up to the, bigger government, so that there's more treatment and more options, basically, instead of just having hydroxyurea as one of our options in blood transfusions. We should get more options, and we will not get there unless the government recognizes that this is something that needs to be taken care of. So I definitely agree there with Jessica. Yeah, but those are my plans going forward. Just spread awareness, post videos, maybe host some events for people to come and listen, like get speakers like yourself to come and talk to the young ones, the older ones. Everybody needs to know about this. So those are my plans going forward.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for that, Esperance. And I look forward to working with you and Hanna, and we plan the year forward. So just wrapping up for us, Mabor, seeing that sickle cell disease obviously affects predominantly people of color, and there's no better way of saying this. There's a lot of literature out there which shows just in terms of racism, in terms of research, it's one of the most common genetic conditions in the world. But if we look at research and just funding for sickle cell, it's one of the under-researched, underfunded condition, what should we be doing without getting so much emotional? Like sometimes when I'm passionate about this and just call a spade a spade, what should we be doing to be closing the gaps in terms of, people of color or the minority when they are being affected by conditions, especially, being the minority and being affected by a rare condition, the two just makes it worse. But what can we do to, increase, access and awareness in our community? You're mute, Mabel.
Thank you once again, Agnes. I think it's a great opportunity to come back again and give a bit of comment after hearing from various speakers. So what I would just want to say is that experience is the best teacher, of course. And by saying that, is that given the panelists today, those of Hanna, Jessica, David Rose, I think what we can draw from this is that, there's already case study that you've already put out there, that people that have experienced the real disease are speaking out to tell their own experience without even hiding. So, and I talk about being, shy sometimes to explain yourself, whether or not is this disease contagious? Does it actually affect people just randomly? That comes in with a stigma, of course. If you don't explain yourself, many of us that are suffering from this disease suffer from stigma and discrimination. And that itself, it does actually try to lower education that we could put outside there. And if we open up, then therefore, we can teach others, we can tell others that, this is a concern and the community need to rise up, and also the government need to do something in terms of policies, making sure that, those who are already suffering should be treated. And, coming back to screening, of course, people who have not had such disease also should be screened to ensure that, numbers are treated before they could escalate. Now, that comes down also with the level of mental health that people may experience, especially people that are suffering from the disease itself. The stigma goes along with mental health, and looking at sexual determinant of health, whatever that we talk about in Center for Migrant Refugee Health, we look at sexual determinant of health. What are the causation? What that cause, mental health itself? The sickle cell disease is part of sexual determinant of health that could actually escalate a lot of mental health in each and every individual that is suffering from the disease. Now, looking at our numbers as people of colors, we have a lot of disease that are around us. Many of us are suffering from different diseases. From where we come from environmentally, it does affect us when we live here in Australia, and that come down with health inequities. Where some of us are not given opportunities or funding that would actually address such issues. So, and if the community actually is experiencing, health inequities, therefore it becomes an issue at the level of policy making, that, there's that discrimination itself that need to be addressed. So therefore, as I will be working with you as partner to this organization, much of my work that I will be doing is to advocate, of course, as one of the sexual determinant of health, as sickle disease, to ensure that, government also has to open up to you to do the best work that you've already advanced within the community, and be able, to teach and give a lot of campaign and capacity building to those who are affected and those who are not affected, for preventive measures and, other things that are very important in making sure that this disease has to be preventable in the state, should not affect people when people are aware that there are treatments that are outside there. So otherwise, thank you very much, Agnes, for tonight's meeting. I hand it over to you. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. This has been very informative. Again, just thanking you for taking your time to sit for 1 and 20 minutes. Sorry, we are 20 minutes late, but sometimes it's just, just passionate about something and you just have to voice it out. Again, thank you so much for partnering with Australian Sickle Cell Advocacy. We look forward to working with you again, and the discussion continues. We can continue communicating on email, on different social media platforms, and just thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Bye.
right. You have a nice day,
Yeah.
David. We'll talk soon. And Facebook family, it was lovely seeing you again. We'll come back again later. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
Have a nice
everyone.
Hey.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.